Marathon Digital mined 77% more Bitcoin in May with the help of its software. The spike in Bitcoin mining is likely due to its mining machines producing at higher capacity than in April. Bitcoin miner Marathon Digital Holdings mined 1,245 Bitcoin in May, up 77% from previous month, with the help of its proprietary software. Quote, the increased production was due to an increased hash rate and significant increase in transaction fees. Now, that's not purely just their software. This software that they're referring to is going to be surrounding ordinals, right? You do have access to a little bit of this ordinal stuff on certain mining pools. If you are going to be mining Bitcoin, make sure that you do the research so that you can participate within that. But what we're seeing on the Bitcoin side right now is what we saw with Ethereum back when it was GPU mineable. Essentially, with the ordinals coming into play, essentially NFTs on Bitcoin, you see a spike in the actual transaction fees. Now, this is going to get really interesting as well, because if we talk about Bitcoin in particular, where we reference Bitcoin and the halving cycle as the main driving indicator behind our halving cycles and the bear market to bull run. And what I want you to think about here, though, is what breaks Bitcoin into the macro cycle, okay? So people talk about the halving cycle and then breaking into the macro cycle. Breaking into the macro cycle, overall, right, and stabilizing the price of Bitcoin comes along by most indicators of when the transaction fees begin to meet the actual block reward of Bitcoin. So as opposed to before, where it looked like we had another 12 years of this traditional halving cycle that we've seen for the past 12 years, with the introduction of ordinals and the increase in transaction fees, this could be shifted dramatically earlier than originally anticipated, meaning that we could see the actual halving cycle begin to end sooner than later as the fees begin to come up to meet the actual transaction or the actual block reward, right? So your transaction fees come up. We have the halving coming up. We're going to go from the 6.5 to the 3.25. I might have got that wrong. Maybe it's 6.25 to 3.14. I think actually. Anyways, so we go from 6 to 3 Bitcoin on the block reward. If our fees per block start to come up to 3, then we start to actually have a reversal or a lessening of the actual effect of the halving on the network, right? So it means that you have miners making more Bitcoin, which means they can sell more Bitcoin at a lower price because they're getting more Bitcoin, which means we start to steady out the price of Bitcoin as a whole. And this is the trend that we're starting to see with ordinals introduction, which this accounted for approximately 11.8% of the total Bitcoin we earned in the last month, CEO Fred Thiel said in a press release on Friday. The miner also increased its operational computing power by 9% to 15.2 exahash a second, according to the statement. Thiel attributed the majority of the increase to Marathon's proprietary software in an interview with CoinDesk TV on Friday. The software gives Marathon the, quote, ability to control the outputs of the machines, the uptime of the machines, scaling up and down the hash rate of the machines, end quote, he said. Marathon operates its own mining pool, which means that there can be fluctuations in Bitcoin production to the expected value, said Ethan Vera, chief operating officer at mining services firm Luxor Technologies. In early May, miners saw an uptick in revenues thanks to higher transaction fees due to the popularity of ordinals. The protocol enabled added functionality to the Bitcoin blockchain, such as non-fungible tokens and meme coins, driving up demand for block space. As a result, fees miners rake in for processing transactions surpassed block rewards in early May. And this, my friends, is actually extremely interesting because this directly, once again, it affects the price to mint a Bitcoin, starts to actually not matter as much because now we're talking about transactions on the network. Newly minted Bitcoin will not be as impactful because it's not a bulk majority of the fees or of the reward as the fees will be. And this is where I think we start to see a shift in the way Bitcoin reacts to the halving. Ordinals significantly helped large-scale miners like Marathon, said Vera. The 77% increase in Marathon's May Bitcoin production could likely be attributed to the fact that it wasn't running its machines at full capacity during April, such that it potentially had a lot of room to increase its production in the following month. In fact, the miner said in April that its monthly 15% decrease in Bitcoin production was due to increased difficulty on the network, luck, and to a lesser extent, curtailment activity. Now, for the uninitiated here, curtailment's going to reference the process in which Bitcoin miners turn off machines or lower the hash rate and thereby the power consumption in return for a kickback from whatever power company they are working with, right? So they curtail, and then the power company says, thanks for providing this power back to the grid. Here's some payment for that power that you've provided back to the grid. It's cheaper for the power company to do that than it is for the power company to go on the spot market and buy more power. And we've talked about this in great detail in the past, so go check out that video if you want more information on curtailment and the details. Marathon in the previous month produced markedly little Bitcoin per exahash, which can be partly attributed to downtime of its mining machines. In April, Marathon mined 50 Bitcoin per exahash of computing power, the least out of 14 publicly listed miners. In comparison, during April, Pure CleanSpark mined 78 Bitcoin, Riot Platforms had 61, and Hive Blockchain produced 81 Bitcoin per exahash. Marathon shares on the NASDAQ were flat on Friday, outperforming some of the peers, while Bitcoin rose about 1.3%. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my locals page at sonofatech.locals.com, where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.